Hey, what's up, guys? My name's Marie, and I'm so pumped to talk to you guys today. Now, I've heard all things when it comes to this topic about podcasting, which is what I want to talk to you about. But I want to show you guys some benefits here on how to do it and how you can podcast to success. So let's get started. Sounds good? All right. Well, let's just go over a quick overview of what we're going to be discussing today. So I'm going to explain who I am a little bit, why a podcast is important, who your audience should be, how to podcast, and what I can do for you. Sounds good? Cool. All right, so as I said, my name's Marie Larson. I'm from Denver, Colorado. I'm a college student, though, at Provo, Utah. And I love what I do. I'm studying marketing, and it's awesome. My mind is constantly churning, and I love that. A little bit about my origin story and how I came about podcasting, because it's kind of an interesting little niche here. So I served an LDS mission for 18 months, and when I got home, I decided that I wasn't actually going to take the Delmo route that I had always planned on doing. Now, some of you may know who Steve Larson is. He works for ClickFunnels as their head funnel builder. Kind of known as the little Brunson, you know. Well, he's actually my brother, cool guy, blessed to be related to him. Well, he sat me down and started asking me what I wanted to do with my life when I got home. And I realized it was business. So he started pushing me in all sorts of directions to help me get a feel for everything. Well, one day he approached me and said, Marie, I podcast a lot, and I want to see if you'll help me. So I started helping him, and well, boom, like his content started cruising, and lots of people started downloading, reaching out to him, buying his services. So many people started to listen to it. His services started to increase in revenue and in value, so much to the point that he is swamped, and no one can just reach out to Steve Larson anymore like they used to, because his time is so valuable. And he really does attribute that a lot to podcasting. So it's really cool. It's been really cool to be part of the process, and he has thousands of downloads now for his weekly podcast, and we've created his culture, if you guys have heard that term before. So yeah, super cool. So I love business, I love funnels, I love podcasting more than anything. I love success. I've been doing podcasting for people for over a year now, and because of it, I've seen lots of growth in businesses, which has been one of the coolest experiences ever. I'm super grateful for it. So one of the objectives that I hope that we can cover here today is I want to show you the benefits of creating a podcast and how to know how to go about podcasting in the correct way, if that makes any sense. So I want to go through and just kind of help you guys understand the importance of it and how you can go about it, because anyone can do it, but it's really beneficial to do so. So why podcast, right? When my brother came to me and he was like, "Hey, let's podcast together," I remember just seriously being like, "Podcasting is like such an olden day thing, you know, like Steven, that's so old." But it's not. It's actually such a huge thing. So podcasting is literally an audible blog, and there's so many blogs that are going on today. I follow a few, but the thing is, I don't stop and I read every word, you know, like I'm guilty with that in college for textbooks and stuff like that. Like I'll totally skim through the whole textbook, rather than read it word for word. And so the great thing about podcasting is that it brings audio, it brings more tone to life and your words to life, where people really want to stop and actually listen to you. So I think that's so cool. So also, people that listen to podcasts are interested in learning, right? Most people that listen to podcasts will learn because they'll listen to it because they want to learn something new, you know. Therefore, they will invest in what you have to say. They'll invest by voting with their credit card, per se. And so just a fun fact, you know, just to, you know, help you guys understand a little bit more what I'm talking about. There's a statistic that shows that there are 67 million Americans that listen to podcasts monthly, right? That's a whole heck of a lot of people. To kind of put that in perspective, I thought that this statistic was kind of funny. It said that of that 67 million Americans that listen to a podcast monthly, that 14%, that's up to 14% in a year. That's 24% of Americans age 12 or older listen to podcasts monthly. For context, 21% of Americans are Catholic. Thus, podcast listening is more common than Catholicism in the United States. So you could say podcasting is a type of religion. I don't know, whatever. So it's like telling a business owner that they have a whole bunch of people who are ready to become your customer, just waiting for you. But they need to get to know you. They need to hear your voice. They need to become part of your culture, right? Okay, so what does a podcast entail? In short summary, here's just kind of a list of things that when you are podcasting that you should probably have within that podcast. So what's your podcast going to look like? What is your podcast going to say? These are the things that you should probably have that are like the basics, right? So you should start with a show intro, and it's kind of a catchy tune. I'll show you it here in a little bit. And then, you'll probably have a couple topics. You should spend 2 to 3 minutes on each one. Sometimes people do interludes, and then you'll close with your closing remarks. You can pitch them if you like. And then you end with your little jingle, your little outro, which is really helpful. So it's important to get excited about your own thing, right? Get passionate about it. Act like someone's threatening it. Get really intense about it, Guys, you need to find your voice, Meaning, don't be a freaking monotone person. Like, it's so crazy. Nobody wants to feel like they're being talked to like a brick wall. People will turn off your podcast really super fast. I mean it. I mean, you're not in front of them, so they have no problem turning off something that they're not interested in. Also, use a lot of personal stories that grab people's attention, and that can easily relate to your topics. Without that, it's super hard. So here, let me give you an example. So here's a quick story example. So I come from a very business-oriented family. My dad was an executive at IBM for 20 plus years. My brother Steve Larson at ClickFunnels, and I just have a lot of siblings, and we're just very business-oriented. So my dad, anyway, he always taught us to be really prepared in this world. I attribute knowing how to work hard because of him. He's the man, right? Anyway, when I would be in the car with him when I was in high school, he would keep my resumes in his glove compartment in the side of his car. And so we'd be sitting in the car, right? And we wouldn't have to be somewhere for like 30 minutes. And he would look at me and he would pull up to some random businesses and like pull up to these places, pull over, pull out my resume, and look at me and say, "Okay, Marie, go get hired by that company." And I just kind of look at him and I go, "Oh, all right, Dad, like, here I go." So I get out of the car and I head into some random businesses. I walked into every kind of business you could think of. Well, good ones at least. And I would go in and ask to be interviewed right there on the spot. Sometimes they'd say no, and I just kind of fight for it. And when I was done, I'd come outside and I'd sit in the car and I'd analyze with my dad what went well, what didn't go well. And my dad would teach me, and we'd practice the art form of interviewing. And he also taught me that it's important to make sure that when you're being interviewed, that you're interviewing the company just as much as they're interviewing you, if that makes sense. So I'd sit in the car with him and I would analyze like crazy with this man. It was by far one of the funniest experiences. But because of it, I am so strong in my interview presentation skills. Like, I know exactly how to interview. And I wouldn't change that for that by any means. So we'd practice all the time. And he taught me how to present myself to someone. He taught me how to interview with the company, and we'd sit there and we'd talk about all these different things. Now, that interviewing is an art form, and it's something that needs to be mastered. Okay, that's the break. I'm done. So that was the story example, right? When talking on a podcast, gotta have voice, be personable. Sometimes people are like, have too much starch in their shirts, are too stingy, like be yourself. People don't want to listen to some monotone robot. But find stories that you can relate to the topic. You've lived a lot of life, and now there are lots of things that you can relate to the topics that you're passionate about. Therefore, you should use it and really try and do that. So going on. So you need to understand your market, right? People are ready to hear whatever you have to say. So, like, for example, why are you guys listening to me speak right now and all of these other experts on Elevate Your Business? Well, it's because we have information that you're interested in. You want to learn something new, and I know something that you don't. And that's how podcasting is supposed to be. I know something you don't. Therefore, I podcast, you listen. It's so simple. So I know how to podcast and you guys don't. Therefore, you're listening to this right now. It's kind of a funny little thing right there, but it's so true. So understanding your market entails what they want, what they need, what they're willing to hear, right? So you need to target that audience, right? So like, what does your audience want to learn? What's the benefit for them? What service can you provide? What product are you selling? Why do they need? Why do they even care why they're listening to you? So to understand a little bit, you've got to think about the things that you can teach someone, something you know. It can be anything. I'm not kidding. It can literally be anything. I've listened to podcasts that teach you how to fix a toilet, a history lesson, how to dress, etc. And there are so many things that you can podcast about. It's not even funny. You can make money doing anything, right? So understand what your target market, your audience, what they need and what they're wanting to listen. What information can you provide for them that is actually going to be beneficial? So some of my favorite ones, like for example, maybe you guys know who Russell Brunson is. He's a man, so good. Absolutely love what he does. He sits in his car and podcasts for, 10 to 15 minutes every day and on his way to work, and that's all it takes. He doesn't have to make it some big thing. He sits in his car and he literally podcasts and he talks about the things that he's going to do to accomplish all these wonderful things, and people listen to him, right? Okay, so that's so cool. So now that you've figured out your audience, what's next, right? How do you actually put the podcast together? What steps should we be taking? And how the heck are you going to get people to start listening to you, right? So here are some things that I use putting podcasting together. So I've been putting podcasts together for over a year, like I said. And a lot of people think that they need really expensive and awesome equipment to put this together. And that is so not true. Like I said earlier in my example of Russell Brunson, he literally sits in his car and uses the microphone off of his iPhone, right? And he speaks into his phone for the 10, 15 minutes that he drives to work every day. And that's how he podcasts, and so he thinks ahead, of course, of a few other things that, like, specific topics he wants to talk about. But it's nothing that has to be, you don't have to have some super fancy microphone unless you want to. So anyway, microphone, duh. Laptop, computer, duh. Now going into some other things that you might need. You can use WordPress if you want to create a blog that goes with it. I also use Rev.com, which just transcribes what you're saying into audio. It's like a fast way of getting a copywriter, and it's super cheap. So you don't have to take the time to write it all out. Now, I also use some programs that pushes through your SEO statuses in WordPress, which is really cool. It's just something that I have a program that does that, which is so cool. And it will literally push your podcast up into the upper rankings of the pages for Google when you pull it up. So that's super cool. And then another one that I use a lot here it's called Pexels. And there's so many websites like this, but this is just one that I've used a lot. Pexels is just free stock photos, right? It's illegal to use photos just straight off the internet, and I like to make sure that I'm doing things honestly. So going through Pexels, and there's all of these different kinds of places where you can get free stock photos, but definitely if you're wanting to put the blog together that goes along with the podcast, then this is a great place to go and get that for sure. Now, why would you want to blog with it? Like that could seem. Why would you want a blog that goes with this? Well, it gives people an opportunity to follow along while listening, which is beneficial. You can also insert hyperlinks in for people. And it's actually better for the SEO, so people can actually find your podcast through Google and not only through iTunes, and gives them the opportunity to rate it and really make your podcast extraordinary. I've also used Libsyn a lot, and I am a huge advocate of Libsyn because I like saving time. Time is money, right? So because you can put all this stuff together, or you put all this stuff together, Libsyn pushes it through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, anything that you link up to it. You can put together one post and it will push it through all of these different sites. It's also super good because you can check your stats on it, which is super helpful to know which which ones are doing well, meaning through which social media you're getting the best reach. And something that I also don't have on here is Adobe Audio. You can go through and put together your jingles and make sure that it's trimmed up and edit the way that you want it to, so it sounds nice. Okay, so logos, intros, and outro jingles, like where do you go to do that kind of stuff? I love Fiverr and Upwork. I don't need to go get something fancy, so I don't. Spend $5, get a logo put together, and it's awesome. And then I've used something called PremiumBeat a lot, and it is so awesome. So hopefully this pulls up okay. I'm right here, and this is called PremiumBeat, and when you scroll through, it has all of these different tunes and jingles that are free, right? So they'll have some that are like 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and it's super helpful. So I'll start out like an intro of a podcast and say like, let's choose something here. And we'll go to like, let's see what this one is. Hey guys, this is so-and-so with such and such podcast. Welcome to, and then they go through and they talk about it some more, right? So anyway, so that's super cool. There's so many free, and if it does cost, it's only like a couple extra bucks. Nothing that's gonna break the bank. So I have loved using PremiumBeat, and there are all sorts of different websites that you can use as well to create your jingle or whatever. You can use GarageBand if you have an iMac, which is just awesome as well. So yeah, there are so many different things that you can use, which is so cool. Now, this is kind of funny. Well, you can push out lots of content, like seriously, so much. I don't know why I use this picture, but it's supposed to be a fun thing. It's awesome, right? But I always laugh when someone comes to me and says, Marie, I publish my podcast, like once a month, and I'm not having the views that I'm hoping to have. And I'm over here just laughing, saying like, well, duh. Like, you're expecting 100% from a boyfriend that only talks to you once a month, Like, it just doesn't work. Your audience needs to know you. So, you should be putting content out at least once a week. Now, statistics in podcasting show that podcasts generally do best on Tuesdays. Don't ask me why. I have no idea. Do something with people are groggy on Mondays and more alert on Tuesdays. I don't know. But Tuesdays people do better, right? So try and put your content out at least once a week. Tuesdays, if you can, that would be honestly awesome. The more content you can get out, the better. If people don't listen to you right at the beginning, or even for the first, month or so, well, whatever. Keep publishing. Keep pushing out content. Like, seriously, put out so much content. So anyway, here's just like a little summary of what we were just talking about. Like I said, stay within the 15-minute, 30-minute range within there. You can be anywhere while you're podcasting. You may be driving in your car like Russell Brunson does. Steve Larson likes his nice microphone, which is good for him. But Tuesdays, like we said, good days to do it. Don't expect a sudden following of people when you're hardly publishing. So make sure you're publishing frequently and with purpose, with vigor. Okay, if you choose not to go the Libsyn route, I highly recommend it. It is a paid service, so keep that in mind. But you're saving your time by doing it. But if you choose not to go that route, and if you choose not to go the blog route either, which I highly recommend just because it really pushes your following up a lot, then that's okay. Don't worry about it. But you can go through and just publish it through iTunes itself. It'll be not as commonly viewed or looked at. That's why I highly recommend the other routes that I've stated. But if not, this is a good route as well. So here's just a list of things that you can do. You can click on Submit Podcast in the iTunes store, and there's links. It's super easy. You can take a screenshot of this, take a picture, whatever. And this is how you can go through and submit your podcast. It generally takes, 1 to 2 days for iTunes to register it and to process it and to get it up, and for them to accept what you've published. So just keep that in mind that it's not going to come up right away. But yeah, so that's a good way to go about it as well. So you might be wondering, Marie, you're just this college kid. What do you have to offer me? Well, I've been doing this for a while, and over a year now, and I want to help you accomplish the things that you want to. Meaning, I want you to accomplish selling more in your business. How do you do that? You create a culture, right? As Russell Brunson always says, you create that culture, which is so funny, but it's true. You need a following. You need people to know who you are, to follow what you're doing, follow your journey. You can literally podcast about anything. You can podcast about anything. And so you should. We've already talked about how to go about doing that. But just know that I am totally here. I love doing this stuff, and I love helping business become successful through podcasting. It is such a fun and enjoyable thing for me to see. So you can use my help by going to mypodcastassistant.com or reaching out to me at Marie at mypodcastassistant.com as well. And I can help you grow your following by working on that podcast with you. I've built some really, really powerful followings before, and you can use my help to go do that. Reach out to me. We can have a free consultation and talk about it for a little bit and see if we're a good fit. I don't want to promise you something that I can't deliver, and so we'll talk through if we think that you have a potential for a great following and if a podcast is really for you. But reach out to me through that. That would be awesome. And if you go to my website at mypodcastassistant.com, then you will see on there if there's like an application to go through, and I'll just read through and study you out a little bit more before we talk. So I'm a really busy person, and I can only take a handful more of you guys. So keep that in mind. and but I really love and enjoy doing this. So please go apply for my services on this site if you have interest in this. And like I said, it's been so fun, and I can't wait to talk to you guys here again soon. I'll talk to you in a little bit. Bye.